next video in the Practical Operational Project Management in Team Dynamics series. This series is targeted to highly operational teams, those whose primary focus is working within a ticketing application to resolve incidents and service requests, but also do project work as well. Who are you? No, I don't mean from an existential point of view about who you are. More, what is your role on a project? If you've been identified as a project resource, in other words, you'll be working to accomplish one or more project tasks or work on some issues, then this video is intended for you. And hopefully it will give you everything you need to know to be up and running successfully in the least amount of time possible. So what's covered? First, we're going to talk about desktops and dashboards, which is creating a friendly space to organize and visualize all of the things you need to know about the projects you're working on. And then we're going to talk about card walls, which really is the defining feature of the Team Dynamics project management tool that sets it apart from just a plain ticket. Next, we're going to talk about tasks, which are the individual items a project is composed of and how we actually work on projects day to day. We're going to talk briefly about issues, which is a valuable way of raising project blockers and even fostering team conversations and decision making. We'll look at the My Work app, which is a tool used by some operational team members to help organize their day-to-day work. And finally, we'll end with tips and suggestions to keep in mind when actually working on projects in the Team Dynamics environment. Desktops and dashboards. Team Dynamics has a default desktop application, which is the first thing you see when you log into the TDX application. The desktop application can have one or more dashboards that have been shared with you by others or created and personalized by yourself. But here's the thing, desktops and dashboards are a really personal thing because each of us have a slightly different way of looking at the world. So what I'm going to do next is show you how to get up and running as quickly as possible using the stock or previously created and shared dashboards and reports. So for this video, I'm not going to show you specifically how to create your own dashboard, but what I am going to do is show you that a dashboard for operational project management has already been created for you and really serves as a guide or inspiration for a dashboard that you might want to customize for your own. So up in the top right hand corner, there is a list of all the dashboards that are created that you have access to, and this will be different for everybody. But one thing you might want to look at is looking at the IT operational projects default desktop. And this desktop is going to have all of the basic features for project management that you really need to be a project resource already created for you. And it's organized into two main columns. On the left-hand column are widgets that are intended for your eyes, and that is things that you're working on personally or are intended for you personally. So announcements, any issues that you're working on, any tasks that you're working on, and primarily these use the built-in Team Dynamics applications. On the right-hand side are mostly things to do with the projects that you're working on or the things that other team members are working on. It's meant to give you at-a-glance information on how the projects you're working on are going forward. So now that you know there's already a desktop created for you to get up and running really quickly, let's go into the projects application and start looking at some of the features there. And let's configure a new desktop that's unique to you. So one thing to note is that dashboards are created with either widgets that have been pre-created by Team Dynamics or through reports that can be created by an administrator or yourself. On the left-hand navigation here, there is a reports section. And it's handy to know that there are a great number of project management related reports that have been pre-configured for you. And these have been saved in the operational project management folder. Now you can run these reports on their own, or you can use these as dashboard items. So let's create our first desktop. We'll click on the Edit Projects desktop. And the first thing that I'm going to do here, and this is based off of personal preference, is that I'm going to change the layout. I actually much prefer having something a little bit different than default. Let's choose a really wide column at the top and two half-size columns. So select that, and now we have the columns that we can work off of. Now on the left-hand side here in the available content, there are a lot of options to choose. Now you can go through and look at each of these individually, but in the interest of time, do the ones that I already know work. So the first thing that we're going to have on top is the My Projects. The My Projects, which is a report that's custom and shared with you, is a graphical representation of all the projects that you've got running. We're going to add that in column 1. The second report we're going to add is an extended view. And this is a text view, and it's going to show the status updates and the project health of all the projects that you're working on. Column number 2, I'm going to devote to things that are to my attention, so things that I'm working on personally. So I'm going to want the Announcements app, much like on the desktop we showed off earlier. I'm going to put that up here. Next, I'm going to go and look at My Issues. I can choose between the built-in Team Dynamics app, which might suit my purposes, or there's a new one here that's got things much the same but condensed so that it takes up less real estate on the screen, which is important to me. So let's drag that there. Next, I want to do My Tasks. Same choice, I can use the built-in Team Dynamics report, or I can use the one that I've created that's a little more condensed, so I'm going to choose that here. And that's good for column 2. For column 3, I want to see more project-related tasks or items that are a little more general, not necessarily for me specifically. So the first thing I want is a really quick way to click into the card walls. And I'm going to choose My Project Plans here. I'm going to put that in column 3. Next, I want to see the issues that have been completed. And I think that's important because as issues get completed by others, maybe it affects my work. So I'm going to go and choose the recently completed in the last 14 days report. I'll put that right there. I'm going to choose another report that is for any issue that is being worked on by somebody else or has been raised and not assigned to anyone yet. So it might be there to take, and it might be something that I can solve. So I'd like to know about it. I'm going to put that right there. And finally, tasks. I want to see all the tasks that have been done in the last 14 days. And really, I'm using that as a general status feed for the projects that I'm working on. Just like to know what other people have been able to accomplish and give me a feel for what's important. So let's add that there. Now, of course, there's any number of combinations or layouts that might suit you. But for now, let's save this. And as we come back to the desktop, I'm going to refresh. And now I have a, I think, pretty well functioning desktop that I can use to work on projects. So the next thing we're going to look at now is the card wall. And there's multiple ways that you can get at the card wall for each project. On the left-hand side, you'll have all of your projects here. And if you open that up, you'll see the plans. If you open the plans, you'll get all the plans each project has. Sometimes you'll have one, sometimes you'll have more than one. And if you click into that, you'll open the card wall. So that's definitely one way that you can open it. Now, if you followed along with creating the dashboard, there's actually other ways that you can get to it that might be a little bit quicker. The first is you'll have a list of projects. And if you click on each one of those, you'll go into the actual project, which is a window in itself. Scroll down, you'll find the plans, and you'll be able to get to the plans this way. Depending on your dashboard item, you might also have a plans link column, which is a little bit more of a shortcut. So if I click on that link, it'll go directly to where all the plans are listed. And finally, if you have a project plans dashboard item, it's a direct link. So you can find the plan that you're interested in for the project that you're working on, and you can click that, and that will get you directly into the card wall. One handy note is that if you're using Windows, you can Control Shift click, or if you're using Mac, Command Shift click here, and this will open the plan in a full tab directly. So now that we know how to get into a card wall, which is part of a project, let's go over some of the features and functions of the card wall itself. And just to review, what makes a card wall unique is the concept of lists and tasks that live within those lists. And each task is, if you want to make an analogy, like a sticky note that you could move between columns. And the status of each task that you're working on is really defined by the column or list that it's in. A basic card wall has three main lists. The first is a to-do list, and this is where everything that you're planning to do as part of the project can live. And using agile terminology, sometimes we refer to that to-do list as a backlog. The second main column are tasks that are being worked on. So in this case, we'll call that the in-process column. And finally, the best part is when a task is completed, it moves to a completed column. But sometimes we need a little bit more than the three basic card wall lists. Sometimes we need to show tasks that are either stalled or on hold for some reason. Maybe there's an issue, or maybe you've chosen to move your resources elsewhere. So for this particular card wall, we've actually created a new item here called on hold. Now, as tasks are created, the point is that you can move things from the backlog into the in process column. And then when you're finished, you can move to the completed column. And what's great about that is that everybody who's working on the project can use a visual representation of what's been done and what's still to be done. And that way you're not looking through ticket feeds or asking around to see where things are at. You've got really one place that you can look at. And it also helps when you're working with your team to discuss, well, what is it we need to do next, or who's working on what. Now, inside each list is a task, and you can click in the task and you can start working through and adding the different pieces of information that you need to work in, and we'll touch on that shortly. But for now, let's look at some of the other things that might make navigating a card wall a little easier. The first thing to know about is the search function. Now you can search the title of a card. Now appreciate some projects are going to have many tasks, and it might not be quite so easy to look at. But if we wanted to cut down the things into something more manageable, we can type a search in here, and for instance, anything with the word update in it will be displayed, everything else is filtered out. The other thing we can use here is the filter. Now we can filter just looking at the cards that are assigned to me myself, and there's only one so far. Or we can show all cards, and we can also filter based on who's assigned to certain things. On the right hand side, and I'll just go over this quickly, you can also show different card lists that are hidden by default. You can show that here. You can also look at some of the details of the plan. And this is really more for project managers, but for instance, if you wanted a list of all tasks as sorted by priority, this would be a way to do it. Or if for some reason you want to export all of the tasks that you have to maybe Excel without creating a brand new report, this is a quick way to do it. And on the right hand navigation here, there's resources. You can see who's doing what, how many cards are assigned to each person. In the total section, you can see a quick view of how many are in each state. And the project feed, if you really want to take the time to see all the things that have happened, you can, and you can certainly filter out some things that are not important to you, but I think it's of limited value. If you wanted to add new lists, you can do it here. I would suggest not doing this unless you are the project manager. So it might take a while to become comfortable in what you're looking at here, that once you understand and your eyes are able to adapt to the way things are displayed, this is really going to help working on projects. Let's create a task from start to finish and move it through the different columns and really go over the different things you're going to be doing while you're working on a project using tasks. So to create a task is as simple as clicking on the add button. So when you click on the add button, you'll be able to give your task a name. We'll call this demo task to show off the features, and we'll save it. And the first thing you'll see is you've now got the ability to add time and the ability to archive it, which is kind of like deleting it. But we're not quite ready to do that yet. Let's edit the card. So most tasks, it's probably a good idea to have a description, or maybe not, because sometimes it's self-explanatory. But here we can add a description. We can also choose to have a start date or an end date. Now, not every task is going to need that, but some tasks might be best suited to have a deadline, and others can't start until something else is complete. So we can choose to do that using the calendar pop-up. Hopefully it doesn't do that. But now this task is going to have a start date and an end date. Priority, that's a good habit to get into. How important is this particular task in the concept of the whole project? Let's use medium for this one. I think it's good practice to estimate how many hours are going to be required to complete this task. So for no other reason, I'm going to choose 5 hours here. Now, responsible, here is where you can add someone responsible for the task. Now, if you're working in a backlog, you might not have a responsible person yet. But if you do, you can certainly assign it here. So I'm going to take this myself. And you can choose to assign them, and you'll get an email telling someone that a new task has been assigned to them. So I'm going to save that. And if I close the task now, I can see that it's been updated here, and a couple new icons have appeared. The 3-line icon here shows that this task has a description, and you can see that these ones here don't. It also has a priority defined, so it shows up as a color. And there's also a thumbnail of the person who's responsible for this particular task. So now that we've defined some of the information on this task, and we've assigned it to somebody, we're really saying it's actually something that we're working on now. So let's move this task into the in process column. And that shows the rest of the people on the project team that this item is now being actively worked on. And you can also see that we're expecting this to be completed by December the 30th. So let's go a little bit deeper now. Let's edit this card again. And now we want to make this task a little more complex. And maybe it's just for sanity of the person working on it. But if this is a little more complex, let's start adding some subtasks. And this is a handy feature to break the task into more manageable steps. So we can have step 1 here, step 2, step 3, and so on. And let's just say we've already accomplished step 1. If I select this, you'll see that the progress now jumps up to something more automatically, and you don't have to arbitrarily come up with a number. And that can be helpful. So if I save that and close the card, you'll see now that there is a new icon here, which tells you that there is now 3 subtasks. That's this icon, and one of them's already been completed. You'll also see that the progress has jumped up. Great, let's go even further. Let's edit this card again. Now, much like a ticket, sometimes you're working on a task and you need to document some of the steps that you performed. Let's do that using the feed section. The feed section will have a history of all of the things that have changed in this particular step. It's like a long audit log, and you can change what you see here using this feature. But if you comment, you can use all of the same features that you might be used to in the ticketing application with notifications, but here's a chance where you can add comments. worked on this step. All went great. Perfect. All right, let's go a little bit deeper now. Now, because we've already defined 3 steps, and we've already said we've worked on one of them, and let's just say that it's the end of the day and it's time to go home. It's a really good habit to get into to add the time that you've spent working on this particular task. So let's just do that here. I'm going to add 1 hour, which is how long it took me to complete the first step. And you can choose your time type, and every project will have different time types. And I can save that. So now the whole project has been increased by an hour, which is a great thing to know. And this particular task now has a time log of how much you spent doing it. So from time to time while working on a task, you're going to encounter something that you either see and need to raise to the project team, or is preventing you from moving forward in this task. And this is where we can log an issue. So using the interface here, we can add a new issue and can't move forward. Filling out the information here as best you can. And you can even go and estimate the number of hours it's going to take to fix this issue. There's a lot of things here that we won't cover, but we can save that. Now when we close this, you can now see that we've got a little flag here that says this particular task has issues. And if you looked at the dashboards that we created earlier, now we've got a way to signal to the rest of the team that something needs to be looked at. Some people use the TDX My Work app, and to add a project task to your work, it's as simple as opening the card and clicking in the bottom right-hand corner to add to My Work. And a quick bonus for some of the other features that you might use. If you open a card, and to save yourself some time and you want to copy it, you can do that. And you can copy it to a different project, or from a different project, or you can copy to a different card wall, or even to a different list. So we'll just save that. And this can be helpful when you're setting up a card wall in the beginning, but now you've got 2 different cards, and you can edit that separately. Another feature is the card color. For whatever reason, you may wish to show different types of cards in different colors, and this is going to be something you're going to have to agree to as a project team. But if you want to do that, you select the different color here and save it. And now this card is going to look a little bit different to the rest. Let's spend a quick minute discussing issues a little further. An issue is any roadblock or unintended impact that directly affects your project's timeline or performance. As an analogy, for those who work mostly in a ticketing application, issues are similar to incidents, and project tasks, like those on a card wall, are similar to service requests. Issues can pop up in a variety of ways. Often issues come up while working on a project task. Sometimes, however, an issue is uncovered on its own outside of any task work, like maybe during a team meeting. TDX allows you to log an issue either directly within a task or at the project level. It's really a matter of style on which is more correct, because it's often a matter of perspective. So let's go over the different ways you can log or view issues on a project. First, you can click on the Issues link on the left-hand navigation for a project. Then select one of the sub-options, or click New on the main window to open the issue dialog. Second, you can open the project directly and navigate to the Issues section. When entering an issue, enter as much information as possible. On the form, there is an option to link the issue to a particular task on a project. If you leave this blank, then the issue is considered to be global. If you do link the task, when you look at the card wall with the task on it, there will be an issue badge, which we've already looked at previously in this video. When to log an issue can be a bit of an art. Sure, the intention of the exercise is to ensure blockers are identified and dealt with in a holistic and transparent way. But there's certainly value in the peace of mind that comes when project members can itemize challenges in the tool instead of having to constantly remember what is outstanding. So maybe a good starting point is to use issues to flag challenges or blockers for the team's attention, or for problems that need to be decided on later. A few examples of scenarios that might not be a good fit for issues are non-blocking challenges or complications that arose when working on a task, or questions to a specific project member. These would be more efficient in a task comment feed or good old-fashioned hallway conversations and team meetings. Now that we've shown off both tasks and issues when working on a project, let's briefly look at the TDX MyWorks app. Without explaining how the entire application works in this video, I do want to highlight how the various project-related tasks and issues look. First, in the My Assignments section, you see all of the tickets, tasks, and issues that have been assigned to you personally or to a group in which you are a member. Using this interface, you can group and sort and filter the information to make it more relevant and easier to read. And what's great about this interface is that you can see all of the items you are responsible for, regardless of whether it's a project or a ticket. And from this list, you can hand-pick what you intend to work on by adding it to your My Work list. If you don't already use this application, you might consider giving it a try to help simplify your working life a little bit. As a bonus for anyone managing a project, there is also the My Managed Projects section. This is a great place to get a single interface with all of the links that you need to work on all of your project items. I know Team Dynamics sometimes can be a sea of open windows, and this interface can sometimes help simplify things a little bit for you. So to finish off this video, here are some tips designed to help you work effectively in the Team Dynamics Project Management app. First, make your project dashboard a friendly one-stop shop to help keep you organized. This might take a little work up front, but it will go a long way to keep you effective. Second, use your issues wisely. You likely don't need to log everything that comes up if you don't need to. If the time it takes you and the team to evaluate an issue is less than the time it takes to log the issue, well, maybe it's not worth the effort. Third, and this is a big one, you really do need to commit to ensuring the information in a project is timely and accurate. If you come to work one day and you start working on something that isn't already identified as a task, but it's important, well, maybe it should be a task and you should enter it in there. Or from another perspective, if what you're doing is not identified as a task, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it without checking in with the team because it wasn't identified as something that needed to be done. Number 4, which is really dependent on number 3 going well, is to get into the habit of checking for project updates. Now this can be through a dashboard report or recently closed issues or tasks, project feeds, card walls, or other dashboard items. If all is well, there should be very little question about how far along the project is and how well it's running. And number 5, the tool is best used as an aid to help keep you and the project team organized. It isn't a silver bullet solution that ensures project teams will magically work well together, nor will it make technically complicated projects much easier. And it's certainly not a replacement for good team communication. It's merely a complementary way to communicate, along with Microsoft Teams, meetings, hallway conversations, etc. Finally, and above all else, don't overcomplicate your approach to project management. You likely aren't launching a spaceship or building a large hospital where lives are at stake. Do what's reasonable and helpful for the team. So hopefully this video has given you a great starting point to begin working on projects. Look for future videos in the Practical Operational Project Management in Team Dynamics series, but for now, thanks for watching.